45 minutes before saying I do, Ava saw the man she trusted most embracing another woman. In that single moment, her dream wedding began to fall apart, or so she believed. Just when she was certain she had uncovered the truth, another groom walked through the doors. Same face, same voice, same smile, and suddenly, nothing made sense.
She thought she'd caught her fiancé cheating. Was she about to lose the love of her life, or discover that would save it?
The first crack in Ava Johnson's perfect wedding day didn't come from a broken promise. It came from seeing the man she was about to marry laughing intimately with another woman, just 45 minutes before they were supposed to say, I do. Some betrayals announced themselves loudly. Others arrive disguised as ordinary moments that only make sense much later. There are days we spend years preparing for, believing every careful choice will guarantee happiness. Yet life has a peculiar way of hiding its greatest tests behind our greatest celebrations. Sometimes love asks us not whether we can trust another person, but whether we can trust what our own eyes seem determined to prove. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. Stories like this remind us that the truth is often stranger and kinder than our fears first suggest. The ballroom of the Grand Wellington Hotel glowed beneath crystal chandeliers that scattered warm light across polished marble floors. White roses lined the aisle in perfect symmetry, their fragrance blending with soft violin music drifting through the enormous reception hall. Everything looked exactly as Ava Johnson had dreamed since she was 16, except her heartbeat. At 31, Ava had spent nearly a decade building a successful interior design studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. She wasn't famous or wealthy, but clients respected her quiet talent for transforming empty spaces into homes that felt deeply personal. Friends described her as thoughtful. Her mother called her cautious. Her younger sister Maya teased that Ava always overthought everything, from choosing curtains to choosing breakfast cereal. Maybe she did, because growing up with divorced parents had taught her one lesson early. People rarely left without giving subtle warnings first. She simply learned to notice them. That careful nature was what first attracted Ethan Brooks 3 years earlier. Unlike the loud entrepreneurs constantly trying to impress everyone, Ethan was calm, steady, a pediatric physical therapist who seemed genuinely happiest helping children learn to walk again after injuries. He listened. He remembered details. He apologized when he was wrong. For Ava, those qualities mattered more than expensive dinners ever could. Together they built something ordinary, and ordinary felt miraculous. Friday pizza nights, Sunday church, morning coffee on their apartment balcony, arguing about whose turn it was to buy groceries, planning vacations they sometimes postponed because life happened. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just two people slowly choosing each other, which was exactly why what Ava saw that Saturday morning made absolutely no sense. Her wedding dress rustled softly as she hurried through one of the private corridors connecting the bridal suite to the florist's staging room. Her maid of honor had forgotten the handwritten vows. Again, laughing to herself, Ava slipped quietly around the corner. Then froze. Standing near one of the ballroom entrances was Ethan, still wearing casual clothes. He shouldn't even be there. The groom was supposed to remain upstairs with his groomsmen until photographs. Yet there he stood, across from an elegant brunette wearing a navy blue dress. She wasn't family. Ava had never seen her before. The woman touched Ethan's arm. He smiled. Not politely, not awkwardly, warmly. Then, he pulled her into a hug, not a brief greeting, a lingering embrace. the woman whispered something that made him laugh. Ava's stomach tightened. She stepped backward before either of them noticed. No, there had to be an explanation. Maybe she was a cousin, an old college friend, someone from work. Still, why hadn't Ethan mentioned her? Back upstairs, Maya immediately noticed Ava's pale expression. What happened? Nothing. Ava. She forced a smile. I probably imagined something. What? Ava hesitated. I saw Ethan hugging another woman downstairs. Maya blinked. Like, a guest? I don't know. And? They looked. She couldn't finish the sentence. Maya squeezed her sister's hand. You've known Ethan for 3 years. I know. Has he ever given you a reason not to trust him? No. Then don't let your imagination steal your wedding. It was sensible advice. Exactly the kind Ava herself would usually give someone else. Still, the image refused to leave her mind. Meanwhile, across the hotel, Ethan adjusted his cufflinks while his best friend Marcus laughed. You've checked your watch 17 times. I'm excited. You're terrified. I'm both. Marcus grinned. Fair enough. There was a knock. Ethan opened the door. Standing outside was the same brunette woman. She smiled warmly. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. Marcus looked between them. You two finish talking. I'll head downstairs. After Marcus left, the woman reached into her purse and handed Ethan a small velvet box. You should give this to her after the ceremony. He smiled softly. Thank you. I know she'd love it. Then she hugged him again, exactly as Ava had witnessed. Neither noticed someone standing far down the hallway, watching. That someone was Olivia Grant, a distant cousin of Ava's mother. She had never liked Ethan, not because he'd done anything wrong, because she believed Ava deserved someone richer, someone more influential, someone who could elevate the family's social standing. She quietly raised her phone. Snap. One photograph. Perfectly framed. From a distance, it looked unmistakably intimate. Olivia smiled. Sometimes people didn't need lies, only carefully selected pieces of the truth. An hour later, guests filled every seat. The string quartet began playing. The enormous doors slowly opened. Ava stepped inside. Every conversation stopped. She looked breathtaking. Layers of embroidered ivory lace shimmered beneath the chandeliers, while her cathedral veil floated gently behind her. At the altar stood Ethan. His eyes filled instantly. The look on his face erased nearly all her doubts. That wasn't the expression of someone pretending. That was love, pure, unfiltered. By the time she reached him, she almost laughed at herself. Maybe she truly had imagined everything. The ceremony began beautifully. Their pastor spoke about commitment, about choosing grace over pride, patience over assumption. The words lingered strangely in Ava's heart. Just before exchanging rings, a wedding coordinator hurried discreetly toward the front. She whispered something into Ethan's ear. His expression changed immediately. Concern, urgency. I'm so sorry, he whispered to Ava. I'll be right back. Then, he walked quickly out of the ballroom. Guests murmured softly. The pastor smiled awkwardly. We'll take a brief pause. 5 minutes passed, then 7, then 10. Ava tried smiling. Inside, anxiety returned. Where had he gone? Why now? Meanwhile, outside the hotel entrance, a black SUV pulled to the curb. A man stepped out. He looked exactly like Ethan. Same height. Same smile. Same haircut. Same face. Only slightly older. He checked his phone. Perfect timing. The hotel concierge rushed over. Mr. Brooks? Yes. They're waiting. He smiled. I know. Then confidently walked inside. Back inside the ballroom, Several guests gasped quietly. There he is. Ava looked toward the entrance. Relief flooded her, until she noticed something impossible. At that exact moment, the ballroom doors on the opposite side opened again, and Ethan walked in from the garden entrance. Two identical men now stood inside the same wedding venue. The room fell silent. Ava's bouquet slipped from her trembling hands. Her pulse thundered in her ears. One man looked just as shocked as everyone else. The other smiled with unmistakable recognition and quietly said 4 words that changed everything. Little brother. Surprise. For several long seconds, no one in the ballroom moved. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the photographers lowered their cameras, unsure whether they were witnessing a surprise or the beginning of a disaster. Ava stared at the 2 men. They had the same eyes, the same smile, the same dimple on their left cheek, the same wedding day tuxedo. Only tiny details separated them. One man's bow tie sat slightly crooked. The other carried himself with a little more confidence, as though life had taught him to hide uncertainty behind humor. Ethan looked equally stunned. "You came?" he whispered. The newcomer laughed softly. "I promised Mom I'd make it if I could." Then he turned toward the guests. "I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm Evan Brooks." A ripple of confusion swept through the room. "My identical twin brother." Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Ava blinked. "Twin?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I was going to tell everyone during the reception." "You never told me." His expression immediately filled with regret. "I know." After the ceremony resumed, and they exchanged their vows, the celebration continued, but Ava's mind remained unsettled. Later that evening, while guests enjoyed dinner and laughter, Ethan quietly asked if they could step into the hotel garden. The summer air felt cooler than either of them expected. "I owe you the whole truth," Ethan said. Ava folded her arms. "I think you do." He took a slow breath. "When we were 6 years old, our parents divorced." She listened without interrupting. "My father received custody of me." "And Evan?" "He stayed with Mom." The words sounded almost impossible. "We grew up in different states. We saw each other only a handful of times. After Dad remarried, talking about Evan became complicated." "So you simply stopped?" Ethan lowered his eyes. "It wasn't my choice at first, but later, I convinced myself it was easier." Ava could hear the shame in his voice. "I spent years pretending that part of my life didn't exist." He reached into his pocket. "The woman you saw before the ceremony." Ava's heart tightened. "Is my sister-in-law." He handed her a photo. It showed the same brunette, smiling beside Evan and 2 young children. "They drove 12 hours to surprise me." Ava studied the picture. Every fearful assumption she had made began quietly collapsing. "I saw you hugging her." "I hadn't seen her in almost 4 years. I thought, I know." He smiled sadly. "You thought exactly what almost anyone would think." She looked away. "I should have asked. I should have trusted you enough to tell you about Evan long ago. Neither of them was completely innocent. Neither of them was completely wrong. Sometimes misunderstandings require 2 people, one who assumes and another who keeps unnecessary secrets." Inside the ballroom, Evan wandered toward the dessert table. An older woman approached him. "You must be Ethan." He smiled. "No, I'm the upgrade." She laughed. "So there really are 2 of you." There always were. The light-hearted conversation slowly eased the tension throughout the room. Guests began taking photos with both brothers, joking that they finally understood why childhood pictures had sometimes looked strangely different. Even the children at the reception treated the twins like a magic trick. Across the room, however, Olivia watched everything with growing frustration. Her carefully captured photograph no longer meant what she wanted it to mean. She opened her phone anyway. She had already sent the image to several relatives earlier that morning with a message. "I hope Ava knows what she's marrying into." Now replies were arriving. That was his brother's wife. "You caused unnecessary drama. Maybe don't jump to conclusions." Olivia quietly slipped her phone back into her purse. For the first time that day, embarrassment replaced confidence. As dancing began, Ava noticed something else. Ethan kept introducing Evan to everyone. Not reluctantly. Proudly. "My brother." The words sounded healing. Years of distance seemed to disappear with each introduction. Watching them laugh together, Ava realized the greatest secret Ethan had hidden wasn't another relationship. It was an old wound. He hadn't concealed a person because he was ashamed of his brother. He had buried painful memories because he never learned how to explain them. Near the end of the evening, Evan asked Ava if they could speak privately. "I owe you an apology too. You didn't do anything. I unintentionally became the reason you doubted the man you love." She smiled. "I think fear deserves more blame than either of us." He nodded. "Can I tell you something about Ethan?" "Please." "When we were kids, he always protected me. Even after we were separated, he'd mail birthday cards every year. They almost never reached me. My mother kept every one." Ava felt tears gathering. "He never stopped trying?" "No. He just didn't know how to bridge years of silence." The following weekend, instead of flying to an expensive honeymoon destination, Ethan surprised Ava with a different idea. "What if we spend a few days with Evan's family first?" She smiled. "I'd love that." They drove together to a quiet lakeside town where Evan lived with his wife, Rachel, and their 2 children. The children immediately began arguing over which uncle was which. At dinner, stories flowed easily. Old photographs covered the table. Baby pictures, school drawings, letters, memories that had waited decades to be shared. For the first time since childhood, the Brooks family felt whole. One rainy afternoon, Ava found Rachel organizing old keepsakes. Among them was the small velvet box Rachel had handed Ethan before the ceremony. You never opened it. Inside lay a silver family compass. Its back carried a simple engraving. Family isn't measured by distance, only by the decision to find your way back. Ava understood immediately. That was why Rachel had hugged Ethan before the wedding. It wasn't romance. It was forgiveness. Months later, Ava and Ethan established a yearly family reunion. No luxury resorts, no extravagant parties, just everyone gathered under one roof, children running through the backyard. Board games, homemade meals, stories that grew funnier every year. The misunderstanding that almost ruined their wedding slowly became the story everyone laughed about most, especially Evan. "I've always wanted to crash a wedding." "You technically crashed your own brother's." "Best entrance I've ever made." One evening, nearly a year after their wedding, Ava found the bouquet she had dropped that unforgettable day. Most of the flowers had dried. She almost threw it away. Instead, she placed one preserved white rose inside a shadow box beside the silver compass. Both reminded her of the same lesson. One represented fear, the other represented direction. Without honest communication, fear chooses the path for us. With truth, even the longest detours can lead us home. People often believe love is tested only by betrayal, but sometimes love is tested by misunderstanding, by incomplete stories, by assumptions that seem undeniable in the moment. Ava discovered that trust isn't believing someone is perfect. Trust is giving the people we love the chance to explain before fear writes the ending for us. And Ethan learned that protecting old wounds with silence often creates new ones. Their marriage wasn't strengthened because nothing went wrong. It endured because, when everything seemed to fall apart, they chose conversation over accusation, honesty over pride, and reconciliation over resentment. Sometimes the greatest surprise waiting at the altar isn't discovering a hidden betrayal. It's discovering how much healing can begin when the whole truth finally walks through the door. If this story touched your heart, remember this: not every painful first impression tells the complete story. Sometimes patience reveals a truth far more beautiful than fear ever imagined. Share your thoughts below and let us know where you're watching from.